Jason sat on the cold stone steps outside a cafe he could no longer afford to enter. The winter wind whipped through the holes in his worn-out jacket, making him shiver. In his pocket, he felt the weight of a single coin, his last dollar. $1 for food, or maybe just for the illusion that tomorrow would be different. People passed him by, heads down, rushing to warmer places, too busy to notice the man who had once dreamed of becoming an engineer. Across the street, Jason noticed a boy no older than 7. The boy's shoes were torn, his fingers purple from the cold, struggling to play a broken harmonica. At his feet, a cracked paper cup trembled in the wind, waiting for a miracle. Jason looked at his coin. His fingers tightened around it. He needed it. He deserved it. But something in the boy's desperate gaze melted the walls Jason had built around his heart. He stood up, walked across the street, and without a word, dropped his last dollar into the boy's cup. The boy looked up and smiled. Not a forced smile, not a grateful smile, a pure, radiant smile, one that seemed to light up the entire street. Jason smiled back, something he hadn't done in a long, long time. What he didn't know was that this small, seemingly insignificant act was about to set into motion a chain of events that would change his life forever. Jason wandered through the city, colder now inside than out. The coin was gone. The hunger remained. But strangely, he didn't feel regret. That boy's smile, it had planted something small and warm inside him, something he thought he had lost forever. Hope. Hours later, exhausted and starving, Jason collapsed onto a bench at the edge of the park. He pulled his jacket tighter around him, trying to disappear into the night. That's when he noticed an older man sitting nearby, dressed sharply, but staring blankly at a crumpled newspaper in his hands. Jason paid him no mind. Just another stranger in a city full of them. But then the man spoke. "You look like you could use a meal." Jason blinked, unsure if he had imagined it. The man stood up and, without waiting for a reply, handed Jason a paper bag and a hot coffee. "Take it," he said simply. Inside the bag was a warm sandwich, still fresh. Jason's stomach growled in disbelief. His hands trembled as he took the first bite. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, Jason didn't feel invisible. Someone had seen him, not with pity, but with simple human kindness. As Jason ate, the man sat back down beside him. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence was comfortable, almost sacred. Finally, the man said, "Funny thing about the world, when you give, it gives back." Jason froze, the words hitting him harder than the cold wind ever could. He had given away his last dollar without expecting anything. And somehow, without even asking, the world had started to answer back. The next morning, Jason woke up still sitting on the park bench. The paper bag was empty, the coffee long cold. But there was something tucked under the bag he hadn't noticed before. An envelope. Jason's heart raced as he opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. If you're serious about changing your life, meet me at 7 p.m. Address below. No tricks, just a chance. Robert Jason stared at the address. It was across town, in a part of the city he hadn't set foot in for years. Fancy offices, tall buildings, places where people wore suits and talked about investments and futures. Things Jason had stopped believing in a long time ago. He folded the paper carefully and shoved it deep into his jacket. Was it a joke? Some kind of trap? Or maybe it was real. All day, Jason wrestled with doubt. Voices in his head fought back and forth. Don't get your hopes up. It's a scam. Why would anyone help you? But there was another voice, faint, stubborn. The same voice that had made him drop his last dollar into that boy's cup. What if it's not? As the sun dipped behind the skyline and the city lights blinked awake, Jason stood at a crossroads. He could stay where he was, safe in his misery, or he could risk being seen again. He stuffed his hands into his pockets, feeling the crinkle of the note inside, and he started walking toward the unknown. Jason arrived at the address just as the clock struck 7. It was a tall glass building, buzzing with people in clean suits and polished shoes. Jason hesitated at the entrance, feeling the weight of his worn jacket and battered sneakers. He almost turned back, but then he remembered the boy's smile, the coffee, the note. Gathering every ounce of courage, Jason pushed open the heavy doors. Inside, a woman at the reception desk looked up, surprised. Before Jason could explain, she smiled warmly and said, "You must be here for Mr. Robert. He's expecting you." Expecting him. Jason's mind raced. This didn't feel like a prank. It felt real. An elevator ride later, Jason found himself in a spacious office. Robert, the same man from the park, was waiting behind a desk, sipping coffee. "Jason," Robert said, standing up. "I'm glad you came." Jason shifted awkwardly, unsure whether to sit, stand, or bolt. Robert gestured to a chair. "I won't waste your time. I run a small program. We help people who've hit rock bottom, but are willing to climb back up." Jason's breath caught in his throat. "Not everyone gets this chance," Robert continued. "But yesterday, you gave away your last dollar to help someone else, when you had nothing yourself. That tells me everything I need to know about your heart." Jason blinked, struggling to process. "I have one rule," Robert said, leaning forward. "If I help you, you have to promise you'll help someone else when you can." Jason's voice cracked when he spoke. "I promise." The next weeks weren't easy. Robert's program wasn't a handout. It was a boot camp for life. Jason spent his mornings scrubbing floors in office buildings, afternoons attending workshops on budgeting, communication, and job skills, and evenings studying for his GED. There were moments Jason wanted to quit. Nights when exhaustion and self-doubt wrapped around him like chains. But every time he thought about giving up, he remembered the boy with the broken harmonica, the boy who had smiled as if the world wasn't broken after all. Jason pushed through. He saved every dollar he earned. He listened. He learned. He fought through every old instinct that told him he wasn't good enough. And slowly, tiny cracks appeared in the walls he had built around himself. One afternoon, Robert pulled him aside. "You're ready," he said simply. Jason blinked. "Ready for what?" Robert smiled. "For the interview." Jason's heart hammered against his ribs. An interview, a real job, a real chance. The night before, Jason couldn't sleep. He kept thinking, what if I mess it up? What if they see who I used to be? But deep inside, a new voice whispered, "You're not who you were. You're who you chose to become." The next morning, Jason put on the best clothes he had, clean, though a little worn, and walked into the building with his head held high. It was time to meet his future. The interview room was intimidating. Sleek walls, cold chairs, people in sharp suits. Jason sat there, palms sweaty, heart pounding. The interviewer looked up from Jason's resume, a thin paper that spoke more of gaps than achievements. "You don't have much formal experience," she said, almost apologetically. Jason nodded. "I know, but I'm willing to work harder than anyone. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm asking for a chance." There was a pause, a long, heavy pause. Then the interviewer smiled. "You remind me of someone," she said. "My father started with nothing too." She extended her hand. "Welcome to the team." Jason stared at her for a heartbeat, not sure he heard correctly. Then, slowly, he reached out and shook her hand, feeling the solid, undeniable grip of a new beginning. Months passed. Jason wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. A small apartment, real paychecks, dinner that wasn't from a trash bin, hope stitched into every corner of his life. One evening, walking home from work, Jason spotted a boy sitting on the curb, trying to fix a broken skateboard. Thin jacket, hungry eyes. Something about him felt painfully familiar. Jason reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $20 bill. Without thinking, he knelt down beside the boy. "You need some help?" he asked. The boy looked up, startled. Jason smiled, the same way that boy with the harmonica had once smiled at him. And in that moment, Jason realized it was never just about $1. It was about choosing to believe in others and in yourself when it would be easier not to. $1 had changed his life. Now, it was his turn to change someone else's.